My mom didn't whisper it. She didn't hesitate. She yelled it across the kitchen like she wanted witnesses. "Get out," she said, "and don't come back." The words hung in the air long after she stopped speaking. Plates rattled slightly on the counter from the force of her voice. My father stood near the sink, silent, eyes fixed on a spot just above my shoulder, like if he didn't look at me, he wouldn't have to choose. I waited for the part where she cooled down, the part where someone said, "Let's talk about this," the part where family stepped in. It never came. My name is Rachel Monroe. I was 31, a project coordinator for a construction firm, single, practical, and, until that moment, still naive enough to believe that helping my parents meant I belonged in that house. I had moved back in 2 years earlier after a breakup and a job relocation. It was supposed to be temporary. That's what we all said, but temporary stretched, the way it always does when you're useful. I paid the mortgage, I covered the utilities, I handled the property taxes online because my parents didn't like dealing with portals. None of that came up in the argument. The argument was about control, about boundaries I'd apparently crossed by having my own opinions, about how I forgot whose house this was. "So leave," she snapped. "If you think you're so independent, prove it." I looked at my dad then. He didn't say a word. That was my answer. "Okay," I said. The word surprised her. It surprised me too. It came out calm, even, not defiant, not emotional, just final. I walked past her, down the hallway, into the room I'd been using. I packed a bag, not everything, just what I needed: clothes, laptop, documents. I paused once, looking at the family photos lining the wall. None of them showed who paid the bills. When I came back through the kitchen, my mom had her arms crossed, waiting, expecting tears or an apology. "I mean it," she said. "Don't come back." "I won't," I replied, and then I walked out the door. No shouting, no slam. Just the quiet click of a lock I no longer needed. The first week away was oddly peaceful. I stayed with a friend, found a short-term rental, redirected my mail. I didn't call, I didn't text. I assumed that was what she wanted: distance. What I didn't realize was how much of their life had been quietly resting on mine. Because 3 weeks later, my phone rang. It was my dad, and the first thing he said wasn't, "Are you okay?" It was, "Rachel, why didn't the mortgage get paid?" That was the moment everything started to unravel. I didn't answer right away. I stared at my phone while it buzzed in my hand, my dad's name lighting up the screen like it hadn't just been 3 weeks of silence. When I finally picked up, I didn't say hello. "Rachel," he said, already tense, "why didn't the mortgage get paid?" There it was. Not "Where are you?" Not "Are you safe?" Just the problem that needed fixing. "I moved out," I said calmly. "Yes, but—" He paused, lowering his voice. "The bank called. They said the payment didn't go through." I leaned back against the kitchen counter in my new place, listening to the hum of a refrigerator I paid for, the quiet of a space no one could take from me. "You told me to leave," I said. "So I did." "That doesn't mean you stop paying," he replied, irritation creeping in. "Your mom was angry. She didn't mean—" "She told me to get out and never come back." Silence. Then softer, "You know how she gets." I almost laughed. "I transferred the mortgage out of my account," I said, "the same day I left." Another pause, longer this time. "You— what?" "I stopped paying," I repeated. "Everything, the mortgage, utilities, insurance. I assumed that was part of me proving my independence." "That house," he started, "is in your names," I finished, "so it should be manageable." His breathing changed, faster, sharper. "We can't just pick that up," he said. "You know that." I did know that. That's why it had worked for so long. That night, My mom texted for the first time. "This isn't funny. We could lose the house." I read the message once, then set my phone face down. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge what she'd said. She just noticed the absence of what I provided. Over the next few days, the messages escalated. "Your father is stressed. We didn't raise you to be cruel. Family helps family." I didn't respond, because something had become painfully clear. They hadn't missed me. They'd missed the safety net. A week later, my dad called again. This time, his voice was different, careful. "Can we talk?" he asked. "We are talking," I said. He sighed. "Your mother didn't realize how much you were covering." That was the closest thing to an admission I'd ever heard. "I told her," he continued, "that maybe we should apologize." "Did you?" I asked. "No," he admitted. "She's not ready." I closed my eyes. "Then neither am I." After I hung up, I opened my laptop and checked my bank statements. The difference was immediate. My account was breathing again. For the first time in years, I wasn't propping up a life that refused to treat me like part of it. I realized then that my mother's command, "Get out and never come back," had never been about distance. It had been about power. And the moment I took my support with me, that power collapsed. By the 4th week, the panic was no longer subtle. My dad called twice in one day. I didn't answer either time. When I finally listened to the voicemail, his voice was tight, clipped, like he was trying to stay calm for someone else in the room. "Rachel, we need to talk. The bank sent a notice. This isn't something we can ignore." I deleted it, not out of spite, but because the pattern was complete. They weren't reaching out to reconcile. They were reaching out to restore function. That afternoon, my mom showed up at my job. She stood in the lobby, arms crossed, lips pressed together like she'd already rehearsed the version of this where I apologized. I watched her through the glass for a long moment before stepping out. "This has gone far enough," she said immediately. "You've made your point." "I wasn't making a point," I replied. "I was respecting what you told me." She scoffed. "You know that's not what I meant." "You told me to get out," I said evenly, "and never come back." Her eyes flickered. I was angry. I was listening. That landed harder than anything else could have. She lowered her voice. "We're behind. Your father doesn't sleep anymore. You're punishing us." I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a clean, sharp understanding. "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm not paying for a house I'm not allowed to live in." She stared at me, searching for the version of me that used to fold, the one who smoothed things over, the one who kept things running. She didn't find her. "You owe us," she snapped finally, "after everything we did for you." I met her gaze. "You told me to leave." Silence. That sentence was immovable. It didn't accuse, it didn't argue, it just existed. That night, my dad emailed. Not a call, not a demand, an email. He attached spreadsheets, budgets, projections, a breakdown of shared responsibilities, highlighted in yellow. My name appeared repeatedly. I stared at it, then closed my laptop. Because here was the truth they still hadn't grasped. Support given under threat is not responsibility. It's control. And control only works as long as the person providing it stays. The final message came 2 days later. From my mom. "We never meant to push you away. Families don't keep score like this." I read it once. Then I typed back, "Families don't evict someone and expect the bills to follow them." She never replied. And in that silence, I felt something settle permanently. They hadn't lost a daughter. They'd lost a system they'd relied on without acknowledging. And now that the system was gone, they were discovering what it meant to stand on their own words. They didn't lose the house immediately. That surprised me. They scraped together payments for a while, borrowed from relatives, drained accounts they'd pretended didn't exist, tried to outlast the reality I'd stepped away from. I heard about it secondhand, filtered through family members who suddenly remembered my number now that something needed fixing. I didn't return the calls, not because I was angry, but because I was finished being functional for people who refused to be kind. The foreclosure notice came months later. My dad called once more, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "We're selling," he said. "We don't have a choice." "I understand," I replied. And I did. That house had never really been about shelter. It had been about leverage, about keeping me close enough to use, far enough to control. Once I left, the math stopped working. So did the authority. I moved forward quietly. I signed a lease in my own name, opened a savings account that stayed untouched, stopped explaining my decisions to anyone who'd benefited from my hesitation. My life got simpler, lighter, not easier, but honest. The last time I saw my mother was at a family event months later. She barely looked at me. When she did, her expression wasn't angry. It was confused. She had expected my obedience to follow me out the door. It hadn't. One evening, as I unpacked boxes in my new place, I found an old envelope tucked between papers I'd brought from the house. Inside was a utility bill from years earlier, paid in my name, forgotten by everyone else. I held it for a moment. Then I threw it away. Because I no longer needed proof of what I'd given. I had proof of what I'd taken back. My mom once yelled, "Get out and never come back." So I did, not dramatically, not loudly. I left with my dignity intact and my money where it belonged. And when the house finally fell apart without me, it wasn't revenge. It was simply the cost of words they thought didn't matter. They told me to leave. I listened. And that changed everything.